certainly for San Francisco, to remember Grandpa Vicha. We're so grateful that Monthanus and her family has taken the initiative to make sure that her father's life is meant for the community and that his life is remembered as someone who championed for change. First off, we like to share a very special video presentation to have you get to know the life of Vicha Ratanapakdee, better know him and his family, and how the movement started. Natassia and the team worked very hard. Jade and the Chinatown Volunteer Coalition worked very hard on this remembrance presentation. So please enjoy.
Broken down and tired of living life on the merry-go-round. You can't find a fighter, but I see it in you, so we gon' walk it out. Move mountains, we gon' walk it out and move mountains. And I'll rise like the silence isn't quiet, and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe. And I know you feel like dying, but I promise we'll take the world to its feet. Move mountains, bring it to its feet. Move mountains, and I'll rise up. I'll rise like the day. I'll rise up. I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I do it 1,000 times again.
Thank you so much for being here and sharing this moment and getting into the life of Grandpa Vicha and his family. Thank you to Natassia and the team for putting together such a great
Yeah, Natassia.
Let's give it up to Monthanus and her family. And next up, I'd like to invite Monthanus herself for a couple words from her heart.
Thank you for everyone's here today. So good afternoon, our honored guests today. I would like to thank you for all of you for supporting our Asian community. Today is one of our successful events to move on to live up equality for all Asian Americans. We don't want to see any more Asian Americans to get attacked or killed. When we are targeted, we cannot keep quiet. We must raise our voice. Nowadays, as you see, there are more cases almost daily. We have to be united and stand up for each other. And now I know we have not just only Asian, but all other allies who are supporting us. I'm looking forward to seeing our nice and peaceful society. Please enjoy your lunch and thank you very much for being here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Monthanus. Let's give it up one more time for Monthanus. Next up, I'd like to invite, we call him Captain America, Captain Asian America, Charles Jung. He's brought us together in so many ways, and he's also the voice of reason, the voice of keeping us on track. So please come on up. He's one of the co-organizers of this event. Yeah.
My friend Kelly told me that the best speeches are the ones that are unplanned and unwritten, so this is going to be the best speech ever. We gathered before the rally started, just the organizers, and we had a moment of prayer and gratitude really towards Monthanus and her family, because we've been working with a lot of victims of anti-Asian violence and hate, and most are afraid. And because to be in the spotlight places you in a vulnerable position. So really what Monthanus is giving to us is a gift of her story. And it's so important for the community because these moments don't come along but once in a generation. Vincent Chen in 1982, the LA riots, Stop Asian Hate. We have to well use these moments, as Monthanus likes to say. I was asked to talk a little bit about the origin story of this group of activists that inspires me so much. And I have to give a special shout out to Natassia Kwan. So Natassia first asked me to meet Monthanus and to help her 2 months ago to write a letter to the San Francisco, it's not going to be political, San Francisco District Attorney to demand better communication with victims of anti-Asian violence, to increase language access, and to identify what the DA's office is doing to protect everybody in this city, including Asian Americans. And I can tell you, when she first invited herself to a happy hour with my friend, I said, I didn't say this to her, but I thought, who are you? Why are you here? But she connected us to a group of so many organizers in this room. Forrest and Mark and Hudson and Jonathan and Amy. Too many people to name who are really the next generation of leaders for the Asian American movement. And we need to give each one of these people a big round of applause, because they are the today. And we met with the district attorney twice. I won't tell you what happened in those meetings, but I remember the Zoom calls that we would have beforehand, just to prep everyone to make sure they're on the same page. You know, I don't remember much of what I advised, except I said, don't fucking cross-examine this guy. You know, there's no press here, no CNN moments, no Fox News moments. And I can tell you, feeling that frustration when Drew is cross-examining our district attorney. I'm like, come on, man, what did we just talk about? But this is the real passion. And I'll just share one more anecdote, which is that 2 weeks ago, before Christmas, I remember going to a holiday party, a Christmas party my wife took me to. And in the middle of it, this was on a Sunday, retreated to the basement, used their Wi-Fi, jumped on a Zoom call with Forrest and Natassia and Justin. And we said, you know, what can we do to elevate this moment where in your news feeds, you as Asian Americans primarily might see the issue of anti-Asian hate alive, but that's not what America sees. America does not see this moment anymore. And so what we wanted to do was elevate this moment to remind Asian America, but also to remind the rest of America that this issue of anti-Asian violence and anti-Asian bias persists even to this day. And we really want to thank Monthanus for letting us tell her story. Thank you, Monthanus. And so when we raised this issue, let's make it nationwide, I thought, that's great, but I don't want to do it. So, and so we had a lot of reservations, but 200 hours of Zoom calls and organizing. Today, in New York City, in Chicago, in Atlanta, in Philadelphia, in Los Angeles, in San Francisco, we united in a moment of silence to honor the victims of anti-Asian hate. And that's what's possible when we unite our voices and stay together, because today we break the silence. Thank you.
Break the silence, everybody. Thank you for bringing us together. And as Charles is talking about the origins of this movement that's happening here with Asian Americans for civil rights, I'm very honored to invite my next guest, Reverend Arnold Thomas. He's the Townsend. He's the vice president of NAACP SF, and I'd love to have him share a couple words for us. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I still get up there. I'm pretty impressed with that. As a matter of fact, we have a thing like that at church, and recently, well, before the pandemic, I made the mistake of hopping off. Sometimes I forget I'm almost 80 years old. But thank God. Yeah, I look good. And it's got to be the Lord, because any of you who've known me for a while No, it's certainly not because I took care of myself. I got to this town in the summer of love, 67. Just got out of the Army. And that really brings me to the first point I wanted to make when in regards to hate. That I was drafted into the Army. Most of you are too young to know anything about that. But you used to get a letter in the mail, men did, and it said, greetings from your Uncle Sam, and your whole life was changed. It was disrupted and you were gone for 2 years in the Army, or you were gone to 5 years in prison, your choice. I sometimes think I made the wrong choice, because it was during the height of Vietnam. I didn't go to Vietnam, I went to Korea. Now, you can look at me and tell, and born in 1943, and tell that I knew something about hate before I went into the Army at 22 years old. But what I learned in the Army is that hatred for others is one of America's, or this country rather, I shouldn't use the term America, there are a lot of Americans. There are Central Americans, South Americans, and there are other North Americans in Canada, and they all have a right to use the term America. But the U.S., one of its greatest exports is hate. When I got to Korea and saw how people in Korea were treated by the U.S. military, it was amazing. We create a red light district everywhere the soldiers go, and terrible things when you talk about sex trafficking, you haven't seen it till you've been around a military post overseas somewhere. And it not only includes women, but it includes girls and boys, young children. And so, and it was really disgusting to me because I'm black. I knew what that meant, the treatment, the names. They not only called people, but they expected me to call them that, and if I did not, something was wrong. And let me tell you something, you've got to be ever watchful to not succumb to it. And that's one of the messages that's going out in our community, and telling folk not to fall for the okie doke, not to fall for the fact that this is easy, because many of the crimes that you see committed are crimes of opportunity. The only hate comes in because of how people look. They figure they're an easy mark. They're elderly, they're Asian, they can get away with it. Asians don't call the police. Y'all know the stereotypes better than I do. And so because of that, it makes people pray. But I want to just tell you a couple of things. Because we're going to solve this, we have to. But when we do, when things start to change, we've got to keep on fighting, because it'll come back. And if it doesn't come back on Asians, it'll come back on someone else. I know, because we've been victims of it since the country was founded. In fact, it may come as a shock to you, because most people don't believe it. If you look at FBI statistics, the person most likely to have a hate crime perpetrated against them in this country, even today, with all that we see in the news, is an African American. And you would never know that by the media. And the media in this town, you would only know that the only hate crimes perpetrated against Asians are by black folk. We can't participate in the lie. Let's start highlighting the real truth of what is going on. Every day, I told you I've been here since '67, it's like 54 years or so. And every day in this city, there are thousands of interactions that go on between African Americans and Asians. Yes, some of them are terrible, some of them are criminal, some of them are hateful, but they are also, the vast majority falls into categories of business and commerce. They fall in the category of neighbor and friend. They fall in the category of schoolmates, churchmates, and yes, they fall in the category of romance. And those far outnumber the crimes of hate by the thousands. Let's start highlighting. Let's start highlighting in our communities the things that make us godly rather than things that make us ungodly. Finally, let me say this to you. Let me be real unpopular for a minute. I did not support Chesa Boudin. Not because I had anything against him. In fact, I served on a National Hard Times Conference board with his mother, the woman who raised him. It was a national board during the difficult times around the bicentennial. But I knew his opponent, and she was a friend of mine, and so I supported Susie Loftus. But let me tell you something, however you feel about Chesa Boudin, remember this. We have been incarcerating and imprisoning people since the founding of this nation. There are more people in prison today serving longer sentences than in any time in the history of this country, and it ain't working. It has never worked. Crime is ever on the increase. We've got to try something different. I know you don't like to hear that. We've got to find a way to do it better than we've ever done it. Doesn't mean much to you if you're the victim, I understand. But we've got to try to find something that solves the problem once and for all, and to make this a place where people want to live, where people have a right to live and to achieve and advance. And this does not happen in every other nation on the planet. Crime does not rival what it is in this country, and you ought to be able to figure out why. The unfairness, I know that's not popular to say. It's much easier to get applause when you come in and say, lock them up. And that is our problem. The reality is that too many of us we care more about punishing folk than we do about fixing folk. Let's change the narrative. Let's change us. Let's change our city. God bless you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Reverend Arnold Townsend. He's a long-term resident of the Fillmore District, and historically Fillmore and Japantown are very close and voting together, working together. And he shares some stories about how there's a lot more love between our community than there is hate, and let's not have the hate divide us, and we need to be together to make sure that we can all live in a place where we belong and are safe. Next up, I want to bring up a very special guest. For Asian Americans, I think we've been missing a foundation really to support us. And one of the changes that came out of the movement of last year was the Asian American Foundation. And I'd like to invite the CEO, Norman Chen, to come and tell us about the Asian American Foundation and himself.
Thanks everybody for having me here today. It's an honor to be here with you and with Vicha's family. My name is Norman Chen. I'm the CEO of the Asian American Foundation, also known as TAF. We're brought today together in remembrance of one of our community members, Vicha Ratanapakdee, who we lost a year ago today. Vicha was a father, a grandfather, and a beloved friend, and the lasting impression his tragic attack left on all of us has not faded one bit. Our communities continue to be under attack, and news cycles rarely capture the full breadth of the harm being inflicted upon our collective consciousness. But on days like this, when our communities come together and take action, we should be reminded of our strength and our resilience. We are strongest when our communities come together, which is one of the guiding lights for our work at the Asian American Foundation. TAF was founded in the spring of 2021 to help accelerate belonging and prosperity for the Asian American community, and we're seeking to do that by building the infrastructure needed to do better, to protect, support, and celebrate our community. This mission has never been so important, particularly in our efforts to combat anti-Asian American hate and to keep our communities safe. We launched our anti-hate national network last year to build more connectivity between the national organizations fighting to stop AAPI hate and the incredible local organizations working on the ground where hate is happening. As part of our anti-hate network, we've established an AAPI Action Center here in the Bay Area, also in Chicago and New York City, to ensure best practices for tracking, preventing, and responding to hate in a way that's scaled and shared nationwide. Our Action Center in the Bay Area is with Asian Health Services in Oakland. We're incredibly proud to be working with them to build on their 40-plus years of service in the community. It's through partnerships with powerful organizations like AHS that we want to help engage in rapid response to incidents of hate and violence as they occur, jumping in to support the families and community members who are affected and engaging with local officials as needed. We also want to create long-term solutions for stemming the tidal wave of hate by incubating the services and supports that will prevent hate in the future. For too long, AAPIs have confronted discrimination, prejudice, and violence. In fact, today we commemorate the birthday of Fred Korematsu, the Japanese-American civil rights activist who took a defiant stand against Japanese internment. Anti-AAPI hate isn't ancient history. It's around us all the time, but all of us have the power to respond. We must be intentional and persistent about how we show up in not only the fight against hate, but in the fight for creating a greater sense of belonging and prosperity. TAF looks forward to working with you and continuing to stand together in that fight. Thank you all for the contributions you're making to our communities, and thank you for including me today to honor Kun Vicha's life.
Thank you so much to Norman and Taft for providing a foundation for the Asian American communities and giving us hope that we can come together and fight hate and create belonging. Next up, I want to invite a local celebrity, I would say, and also a long-time activist, Chen. He is the president of the Oakland Chinatown Chamber of Commerce and also a board member of the Asian Health Services, which is part of the Action Network that TAF has set up. Please welcome Chen.
Thank you. Before I get started, I want to say, Grandpa Vicha, Vicha's family and friends, we love you. And also for those in support of Vicha's family and those who are in support for this AAPI hate, doing all your work, I also want to say thank you. My name is Chen, and I'm so excited, of course, to see Norman, the TAF. And they have done quite a bit of good work and supporting those, especially like Asian Health Services, which I also serve as a former chair and also current board member. So I wear many hats, and for those organizations you mentioned, including like APAPA, Asian Health Services, Oakland China Chamber of Commerce, and also with the many organizations, Neighborhood Crime Prevention Council. It's all volunteer work, just like many of you. And I will say also special thanks to those doing all this patrol volunteer work in San Francisco, like Yana here. And we also have the original group in Oakland to patrol since beginning of last year in 2021, the Blue Angels. And I do see Compassion Oakland's right here. Asian of attitude. And many of you have done so many things, in helping, our community. Now don't worry, I have only one page. The font size is 20, okay, so it's okay. So it won't be that long, I try not to. But also I want to talk about, when I'm hearing, Mr. Townsend, I want to talk about racism. And many people try to say that I understand racism. What I would say, you truly don't really know racism unless you are the receiving end. Right. And who knows best? Our black community, and which is so true. And I'm so thankful that so blessed, when I was in high school, the one person really influenced me the most was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I remember I was in class, and I came from Hong Kong. So you never really watch any movie in class. So they said, they have a movie that to watch. And turned out to be, I Have a Dream. And that really changed my life, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now. Now, I know that Mr. Townsend did talk about we also suffer a lot in our community. If you could remember, some years ago, Chinatown, if you were Chinese, you could not cross Broadway. If you did, guess what happened? I know Mr. Townsend will tell you. Just like the own community, you got beaten up or you'll be lynched. And I'm not kidding. So that's happening, but we need to change that. I know that some of you have been reading and seeing the list of people got killed because of the hate. And I'll tell you, my name could also be ended up there. But I got lucky because I always got attacked. But I'm lucky that I survived that attack. And it happened, early, actually at the end of April last year. And interesting enough, people said, why are you doing this? Well, I've been doing this for a long time. And some of you may still remember there are a couple of high-profile murder cases taking place everywhere, but including Oakland. One of them is a father and son. They came shopping in Oakland downtown, and there was a little argument. So the father said, "What happened? Why are you beating up my son?" And so unfortunately, he also got punched in the head and knocked down on the ground in front of Fox Theater, and he died. And a few months later, actually shortly after, in the same year, another gentleman came and to the interview at Google. And just one day before, he got robbed in downtown Oakland. He got shot and killed. And when all this happening, the families got hurt, and they asked me to, I stepped in and helped. And I was the one helping to deliver. If the PTA office will understand, or attorneys, I was helping to deliver what they call the victims' impact statements. So when that happened, I did it on behalf of those two families that lost their loved ones. And the only good thing I could say was that it did bring us all together, the community. But that was very, very, very tough. And when I say tough, November was the most challenging month for me. Why? On November 4th, it was actually me, myself, delivering my own victims' impact statement. There are many people there in support of me, but surprisingly, there are many more people. They were supporting the attacker who attacked me. And I was a little surprised. But I guess this is what we are seeing in our community, in this country. And it's not the worst. In November, on November 6th, remember the little Jasper and who was in the car with the family on the freeway, driving on southbound 880. And a stray bullet hit and killed this little baby. And he was only 23 months old. So I was able to, connect it with the family. And I still remember on the day of November 8th, 2 days later, we were helping the father who was in China, who had never seen this little baby Jasper, even though the day when he was born. So on that day, he was able to fly in to SFO. And we were so lucky to get the help from the Oakland Police Department and the Alameda County Sheriff, the San Francisco Police, and also the Immigration Office. So we got him out quickly and, uniting with the family. And he himself never had a chance holding his own baby. And at that night, I spent most of my time with the family and talking about the logistics, talking about the funeral, talking about many, many things. And also one of the things that we were doing was to set up the GoFundMe. So when it was done and finished, I got home around 10 o'clock. So my wife was waiting for me and had dinner ready for me because it was my birthday. And I had the best dinner. It was a hot dinner, just like the good food you have like today, okay? And so I think it's the most memorable of my birthday. So I told my wife, I'm very fortunate because I get to celebrate many of my birthdays But Jasper could get to see his second birthday. It has been so tough, especially knowing that, this father never had a chance holding his own baby. And the time that we need to show him little Jasper is seeing the dead body. And that's been quite tough. So I think one thing we need to say and understand, the AAPI community, and there are many victims like Vicha and all the names go on, and hasn't been stopping ever since. And Mr. Townsend did mention it did not happen yesterday or last year. That's been going on for many years. And when people are facing one pandemic, the AAPI community, we're facing the dual pandemic. And this attack hurting our community is the worst pandemic ever. So it's a allergy season. There's also a season for love, not hate. And people said, what can we do? We can do a lot of things. And I know Justin asked me, what is the toughest things about doing all this work? I think when you are seeing me, I talk pretty tough outside. At the press conferences, I talk tough. But the only problem is, when I got home late at night by myself, I couldn't help many times crying. I couldn't help myself. And because sometimes you feel like you're doing it alone. But today, you look at Raleigh, I know that I am not alone. But who said, want to do something? What do? We must do something to change it. Okay? It takes all of us together, the political will, and we must do something. But it's not going to be you or me, it's going to be we. Now, I know Mr. Townsend did talk about many dark chapters in the history of this country. But guess what? Starting today and tomorrow, we'll start writing the new chapter of the history, and we can change it. Woo! And by working together. And we need to continue. Remember, it's not about you or me, it's us. And again, when we're doing this together, it's going to be many, I know that we're focusing so many times on the problems. Let's talk more about the solutions. I know you all know how to do this. And there are short-term and long-term solutions. And you know what? I know politicians can always say, I can do this. But it's not about talking, including all of us. It's about delivering. So when we are talking about solutions, let's talk about how to implement all these solutions together. And again, I'm so thankful, in addition to all of us, the media. Do you know that all this time, all this thing happening, and when we're talking about how many incidents happening, do you know that's only representing maybe 10 to 15% that you know about? What about the other 80, 90%, the incidents still happening every single day? We need to voice out. And I'm so glad that today the rally and all of you came together, and the media is actually giving us the voice. And before, I remember when all this happening, Mr. Townsend at the end of ACP, you have all experience. Do they talk about things that you are concerned with? Not always. But are we talking about it now? They have to now. Because all of us together. I also want you to know that for us to make all these changes, it cannot only coming out from the AAPI community. We all have to work together. The Black community, Asian community, Jewish community, Hispanic, all of us, we have to work together to make this change. Okay, so in closing, I really need to say thank you to all of you. Remember, We cannot just talk about it, but let's move on to actions. There are many, many people, I know I cannot name all of you, but a few people have to say, I want to say thank you to Justin, Charles, Natassia, Forrest, Lily, and many, many of you are the organizers. So let's do it, let's change the dark chapter and rewrite the new chapter. Thank you.
Thank you, light will prevail, and the reason we have the lotus as symbol is because it grows in the mud, in this dirt, comes out of this flower with such beauty and purity, and that's where we grow, even out of darkness, even out of the dirt. Thank you, Carl, for sharing your stories of helping with so many families and sticking through for all these years and not giving up. Even when he was the only person, he would not give up, and now we are not alone. We're together, we're strong, we're gonna beat hate, we're gonna do it together, yes. And speaking of action, my next speaker I'd like to invite is from the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, Vikrum Aiyer. He's going to talk about some of the work he's doing and the firm is doing in the government.
First of all, I do want to thank the family again of Grandpa V for allowing us to honor this moment. I really appreciate you letting us be here today. I know maybe just the way I look, it may not seem that I obviously know anything about hate, but my name is Vikrum Aiyer, and actually the last name Aiyer in South Asia was a source of prosecution for my family. They were denied jobs and education on that last name alone. And like we celebrate a grandfather today, my own grandfather's brother during World War II was a subject of an internment camp of its own right and was locked up as a prisoner of war. Obviously, my parents, who immigrated to this country from India, sought refuge and saw a new chapter in life, and it has been incredible. But that story of grandfathers is not too uncommon. It's not just a Vincent, it's not just a Vicha, it's not just my grandfather. It's the story in this country of the Chinese Exclusion Act. It's the story of World War II Japanese internment. It's the story just a couple of years ago of a president of these United States standing up a Muslim ban in this country. These stories, time and time again, define the American journey, and yet the only thing that stops it is the organizing that we see on full display today. So to every single organizer that has made this moment possible, let's hear it one more time for them. Let's give them a round. As Judson mentioned, I work for the National ACLU, it's a civil rights organization. And of late, everything that we've been seeing, everything that this room has been organized around has really inspired us and moved us to action. In the last 2 years alone, we've worked with Congress to give the U.S. Department of Justice new powers to investigate hate crimes federally. We've been combating misinformation against the Chinese American and East Asian communities online, specifically during the COVID-19 pandemic. We've been working across the country to make sure that tenants' rights and renters' rights are codified and strengthened for Asian Americans up and down the Bay Area and throughout the country. And we've been working with the Biden administration to create a pathway to citizenship for too many undocumented members in this country that continue to get persecuted from basic social services. We're proud of that work. But the one thing that I wanted to talk to each of you about today is that sometimes it does feel like we're forced to choose between how we make the situation better. You just spoke to solutions, that we need action. But sometimes in this town, we're told that we can only stand for action of the Asian American community and people like Grandpa Vicha, or we can stand for principles of criminal justice reform and wanting fewer black and brown people in jail. Why are those at odds? Those do not need to be at odds. We choose both. This room chooses both.
we can have a system that is both safe for San Francisco and free of racist elements of our criminal justice system. We can have a system where we invest in mental health, in job training services, in good quality pay, in childcare and housing, and in a world in which my auntie and uncle can walk to school safely or to the merchant safely. We can have a system in which we protect Chinese American, Indian American, Korean American workers, give them the right pay and the right dignity of work, and protect the small businesses, the grocery stores, the merchants, the corner stores that are dying and clawing to crawl their way back up from a pandemic. We can have both, but all too often we are and forced to choose between a false choice. But today, we say no. Today we say no because if we organize together, if we create the type of diversity of representation in public office together that looks like this room, if we create allyship together, where we do not just stick our necks out the next time a Thai American community and family member faces crime and violence, but the next time that a Sikh American family faces violence, and the next time a Jewish American community faces violence, all of us stand up together, this room stands together, that's how we can get both. And that sense of organizing, that sense of trust, that's what we have to do. There will be a lot of people that all too often will give us a list of names. They will tell us about Michelle Go. They will tell us about your grandfather. Maybe someday they'll tell stories about my own grandfather's brother. But those stories will only go in vain until we organize, until we do more of this, and until we actually demand one common thing, that if we build trust in each other, if there is a police department that trusts the DA's office, that trusts the mayor's office, and this community can trust and look out for each other, that's how we get that shiny vision on the hill. That's how we become the San Francisco we are. We are not a town of false choices. California is not a town of false choices. There are not two San Franciscos. There are not two Asian communities. There are not two versions of how we get this done. There is only one common sense, and that is our dignity and our decency, and we can do that if we continue to organize today. Thank you.
Thank you, Vikrum and the ACLU, for sharing how they've been working to further our rights. And it is not an either or. We can do both. And we are changing the narrative through our organizing. So now, last but not least for today, there's going to be more events. I want to invite Natassia, one of the co-super heroes of this event, to share some last words.
Yeah, Natassia.
Thank you for making it to the end. I just want to say some really quick thank yous. This national event took so much help and work from so many people. Of course, the very first thank you goes to Monthanus, Eric, your family, for your bravery to speak up and let us tell your story. Number one. The lead event organizers, so Charles Jung, like we said, he's our captain. He ran and coordinated this national event. This is a huge, massive effort. He said 200 hours of Zoom calls. So huge thank you to Charles. And thank you to his family for lending us the 200 hours of time, because I know as a mom, that's a lot. Okay, and Justin, wow, your efforts for marketing and organizing the national event, the media, all of that. Thank you so much. You've really gone above and beyond at this event, also putting together this lunch. Forrest, without you, the San Francisco event would have fallen apart. You helped us with all the permits and coordinating with the elected officials. We're so grateful. Thank you so much, Forrest, for really being there for the Ratanapakdee family since the very beginning of this movement. So thank you, Forrest. And who came in, really was a huge pinch hitter at the last minute with the stage and the sound. She helped us get Neighborhood Arts to help us with technical support. The sound and stage, they've been serving the cultural community since 1967. Thank you to them and Lily also, and your amazing volunteer team, Lily. Thank you so much. And just a few more. Okay, so we have Stand With Asians. They helped us significantly with marketing. Mark, where are you? Mark? Okay, well, Mark, right there. Thank you so much. We wanted to make sure Stand With Asians, they've been a huge partner. The Asian American Foundation, Asians Are Strong, all the amazing partners for this event. We had amazing volunteers from Chinatown Volunteer Coalition as well as Dear Community. The volunteers at the front door when you came in, that was Amy Lee, J2, Tam, your amazing crew, and Juliet, thank you so much. And our cellists, I don't believe they're here anymore, but Adela Kiko Kearns and Angela Sun. And lastly, all of our amazing speakers, Mayor Breed, City Attorney Chu, Senator Wiener, Supervisor Stephanie, Norman Chen, Carl Chan, Reverend Townsend, and all of the organizers. Thank you so, so much. Huge thank you to everyone.
All right, thank you everybody. Enjoy the rest of the lunch here, and what a beautiful day it is. So please enjoy, get to know everybody. We'll be doing this more and more often. Let's keep the organizing going. Thank you.
Thank you.